Thank you. Please stand by. You will now be placed into conference.
Elise joining us from Massachusetts, and also Judy Zorfis, who's from EDC. Judy?
Hello, hi. I'm also located in Massachusetts.
Great. So we're really happy to have the opportunity to give you just an overview of PowerUp What Works. And this is a quick sense of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be just talking about the purpose of the session. We're going to give you the background on PowerUp What Works. We'll be providing you with a tour, and we're going to show you how you can use PowerUp What Works to customize your professional development. We're looking forward to your questions and suggestions, and then we're going to talk about some next steps. In terms of the purpose of today's session, we're going to be exploring our PowerUp What Works website. We're funded by the U.S. Department of Education, the Office of Special Education Programs, and we're in the last year of our project. And our goal is to reach out to groups such as yours who are doing terrific work out there in the field, and to give you a sense of ways that you can use PowerUp as you reach out to your network and help your stakeholders customize their professional development to meet their needs. And then we're going to just spend a few minutes talking about ways that we might be able to support you further in your work. So as I mentioned, we're funded by the Department of Education, and we are a free website. It's your tax dollars at work with no log-on, no registration. We have built the content based on feedback that we've received over the past 4 years from our 15 field test sites and from our advisory board experts and also technical experts that have been involved in our project since the beginning. So we hope you'll get a sense of not only the breadth of the resources and materials and information that we provide, but you'll get a sense that we have been updating and redesigning PowerUp as we've gotten this feedback. And as recently as last week, we launched PowerUp 4.0, which reflects the recommendations and the suggestions that we've gleaned from a wide variety of sources. The overarching goals for PowerUp What Works is to ensure that students with disabilities and their classmates are college and career ready, that teachers and educators and professional development coordinators have the information that they need to help teachers and school leaders ensure that technology is really used to its maximum potential. And so we have focused on bringing together evidence-based practices, technology, universal design for learning, UDL, and differentiated instruction all in one place so that our users can understand how these different components really work together to ensure that students get an education that is both technology enriched and that teachers have the evidence-based practices that they need to enhance their teaching. As you'll see when we get to PowerUp, there are 3 key components to the PowerUp What Works site. We have resources for your classroom, ways that you can power up your classroom. We have resources for professional development, and we have resources for school-wide technology implementation. So this allows the user, whether you're a teacher looking for classroom resources or whether you're a professional development coordinator looking for tools and materials to put together to meet the needs of your audience for professional development sessions, or if you're a school leader looking for resources to leverage technology throughout your school, PowerUp is the place to go. So I'm now going to hand the podium over to Elise Brand, who's going to give you an overview, a quick tour, if you will, of PowerUp What Works, show you how the site is laid out, and then Judy's going to show you how you can actually personalize the resources on PowerUp to make them work for you. So Elise, take it away.
Great, thanks Tracy. Caroline, if you would go to the website for me, please. Thank you. Caroline is going to be my driver, so it's easier for me to talk and not have to click and talk at the same time. As you can see, we're starting out on the PowerUp What Works homepage. And if you go down our left side of our navigation, you can see the key areas of PowerUp that Tracy just referenced, powering up your classroom, powering up your school, and powering up your professional development. We're going to get started with PowerUp. And we pulled this together based on the feedback that we've gotten from the field, the 15 field test sites that Tracy mentioned, about the types of information that teachers and schools were looking for. We have sort of a general get started, which is really kind of a greatest hits, frequently asked questions, the types of things that kept bubbling up, expressed needs of schools and teachers with regard to technology implementation and meeting the learning needs of students with disabilities and struggling students. And because we also wanted to address individual needs of our 4 sort of core audiences, we also have individual getting started pages for teachers, teacher educators, professional development facilitators, and administrators. And each of these pages provides targeted suggestions for resources and materials on the PowerUp website that make sense within the context of those particular audiences. So Caroline, let's start with PowerUp Your Classroom. And I'm going to give a very quick tour, and then Judy is going to delve deeper into some of these resources, so we will return to these things. PowerUp Your Classroom is broken apart into several different sections. We have resources in both ELA and math, and each of these is aligned to the evidence-based practices found in the IES practice guides and from the What Works Clearinghouse, and they're all additionally tied to the Common Core standards, as you'll see when we delve deeper into those. We also have resources on using technology to support formative assessment. We have a group of technology articles about specific technology strategies that can be applied across content areas, and we have a section about incorporating universal design for learning. So Caroline, let's start with the math instructional strategies. And let's choose I'm going to say math language right up top. So each strategy guide is set up in the same way. There's always a short paragraph that talks about what the strategy is, and then there's a short introductory slideshow that gives you an overview of this particular strategy and talks about why it's useful and beneficial for students with disabilities or students who are struggling. See there. So we like to practice what we preach and have multiple means of representation of our content so that teachers and administrators can come in a variety of different ways, whether it's reading text, watching a video, using a slideshow. So if you scroll down a little bit further, Caroline, please. So each strategy also has targeted suggestions called Teach with Tech, and these pull the evidence-based practices from IES practice guides, providing clear explanations, giving students strategies and models, and providing ongoing formative assessment. And then showing teachers exactly how you can teach these particular strategies using evidence-based practices and technology to support it. So we always provide examples and teaching tips. If you can scroll down just a little bit further, Caroline. And each one, let's see, if you go to the bottom of number 2, you'll see there's below each step, each practice, there's a view evidence behind this recommendation. We always want to bring schools and teachers back to where these come from and that there's research to support it, so that we put that all in one place so they can see exactly where these recommendations that come from and how much evidence is available. If you can scroll down just a little bit further, Caroline. I'm going to do this very quickly since Judy's going to show these things in more depth. And each strategy guide also features supporting materials. We have lessons in action, which are sample lessons showing what this might look like, and we have videos that highlight different technology strategies that teachers can use with their students. So if you go back up, Caroline, let's look at the formative assessment materials very quickly. So this is another piece that came directly from the work we've done with our field test sites. Differentiating instruction can be challenging when you've got a wide variety of students in your classroom. And so we've built in a lot of support for doing ongoing assessment and changing your teaching strategies as you go and how technology can support that. So for both ELA and math, we provide a number of suggestions and strategies for teachers to use technology to make ongoing assessment a little bit easier. And then in our more tech ideas, we have a whole collection of broad technology suggestions, things like using embedded supports to differentiate instruction. And these are strategies that can go across multiple content areas, and each one is set up in the same way. We always provide teachers with an overview of how to use it in their classroom and provide them all of the research that's available to support using that particular strategy with students. Okay, let's go to PowerUp Your School. And please chime in if I'm talking too quickly or there's anything that people want me to go back to. So when we created these resources for teachers, we wanted to provide teachers with as much support for trying out new technologies, using technology to differentiate instruction, incorporating universal design for learning into their lesson planning as possible. But we also recognize that teachers need the infrastructure and organizational support of the school and the school leaders in order to have the space and the freedom to try out new technology tools and to try new teaching strategies. So we created a suite of materials for schools to help create that environment that helps teachers be able to explore and try technology tools. So within PowerUp Your School, you'll see we have 3 key sections: assessing readiness for technology implementation, exploring technology implementation recommendations, and these are based on the available research on best practices in technology implementation. We have 6 key recommendations along with specific action steps that schools can take. And then we have a series of support modules that go along with these best practice recommendations to help schools work through the big key pieces of technology implementation, whether it's planning professional development or looking at your technology budget and figuring out how you're going to budget not just for the technology purchases, but all the future costs that you may not always think of, or whether it's providing the technology support and infrastructure that teachers need. And then tying these 2 pieces together, I mentioned professional development, but we felt it was important enough that we have a whole separate professional development section. This is the piece that most often gets left out with technology implementation or may not get enough attention. I'm making sure that teachers don't just get the how of using a new technology tool, but that they also get a lot of support and professional learning opportunities with how best to teach using this technology tool, where it makes most sense to use a particular technology tool, or what strategies might go best with a particular technology strategy. And so with that end in mind, we created a suite of professional development materials, both facilitator guides and specific resources that go along with each of our instructional strategy guides with ideas and activities that can be used as part of a professional development. And Judy is going to talk in more depth all of these resources and how they work together. So that's just the quick overview. Judy, do you want to take it away and give the more in-depth discussion?
Sure. I'm going to imagine that I'm a TA provider and that I'm planning with somebody from one of the school districts a professional development session that had to do with the standards focusing on reading informational texts. that's really core across the Common Core and across all states that even are not using the Common Core. How do students understand informational text, and how do they engage in close reading as part of that process? So I'm working with someone, and we're thinking about our audience, and we're saying, let's focus on social studies, because this is the area where our teachers from grades 3 all the way up through middle school and even into high school worry about how students are able to read, understand, utilize informational texts in the area of social studies. So I'm going to PowerUp, and I've been doing some browsing around, and we're going to pull different materials from PowerUp. So first, we're going to look at some of our instructional strategy guides, and we're going to look at the ones in terms of PowerUp Your Classroom. We're going to go down the list of the English Language Arts instructional strategy guides, and there are 3 that hang together, especially when it comes to informational text, close reading. And those are summarizing, self-questioning, and visualizing. Let's just look at self-questioning first, because what I want to focus on in my professional development plan is that we're going to be looking at that Teach with Tech section. So let's scroll down and look at some of those strategies about self-questioning. And if we scroll down slowly, I really like this to make sure that everyone's on the same page in terms of the definitions of the types of questions. We'll focus on that in our PD. We'll use all of these strategies, and we'll also focus on the possible questions students can ask themselves. So in our PD, we'll even do some role modeling, where we will be thinking aloud and modeling how we would even show students how we would ask these kinds of questions. And let's go down a little more. And we can think about having students generate their own questions, sharing their questions with peers, and also providing so many different opportunities for students to practice. And I like some of these strategies. So when I am planning this, I'm going to be looking at the strategies not only in self-questioning, but comparing those to summarizing and visualizing. Visualizing is very helpful in thinking about what you're reading and how you can understand that. So I'll be using those, and if we could just jump over to the PD support materials, because we really like to think about blended learning and how we're going to have people prepare in advance for a face-to-face session, we'll direct them to the Teach with Text sections of summarizing, self-questioning, and visualizing. But also, when we're face-to-face together, we're going to, let's open up that self-questioning PDF. And let's go down to a chart that we have that's a handout we could use. Keep going. These are directions for how to use materials. And I'm going to use this, we're going to use this chart. What we have here are the strategies that we've just looked at in web text online. And now in this handout, we've listed the same strategies, but we have this column for differentiating instruction with technology. Even though we'll have teachers in this PD session that'll be mixed grades, we'll have them check off those strategies that they think are relevant for their students, given their students' needs. So they'll always be thinking about how to customize, how to personalize their instruction. And then we'll be asking them to collaborate, to generate strategies to fill in that third column. So before they come to PD, they'll be online. Before they come to our face-to-face session, they'll be online first, reviewing sections of PowerUp What Works. They'll come here all together, and we'll utilize this material. While we're together, we're going to be using the videos that we have right here on PowerUp. So there are two quick views, that's what we call our videos, right away that we can use. One of them is using multimedia to support social studies. And if we're back in we could open that one up. We're not going to play it now for you, but I want you to know that these are captioned. There's a voiceover narrator, and these are wonderful. This is a 5-minute video. This is terrific for stimulating conversation, for getting people to collaborate, and for using this as a springboard to think about further ways to use multimedia to support reading informational text. Well, we'll be doing another activity, and then because I saw there was such a terrific response to using the video, a little later in our PD session, we'll be using another one of the videos, Embedded Supports to Differentiate Instruction for Struggling Students. If we could pick that right up from the Visualizing Instructional Strategy Guide. So let's go to Visualizing. We're going to need to go back there anyway because I wanted to show you something else. Okay, and if you go down to our quick views, okay, and there's the embedded support. And let's just open it just for 1 second just to see what it looks like. Again, these will be, these are captioned, these are captioned, and we have narration. Okay, great. If the microphone was right next to the computer, you'd be able to hear that. Well, people like that, and it gets us back into thinking about differentiating instruction. This plus that handout where people could use that to differentiate instruction and make their plans, that combination is very strong. Before our face-to-face session ends, we're going to be utilizing one more material that's here on PowerUp. In our Visualizing Instructional Strategy Guide, we're going to look at our lesson in action, the one that's storyboarding. There's one for younger grades about Charlotte's Web, and there's one for older grades on storyboarding. So let's open that up. Okay. Every one of our instructional strategy guides includes one or more lessons in action. And they're all, again, organized in the same way. They have a context that tells you a little bit about a classroom. This happens to be Ms. Flynn's 5th grade classroom. They're studying the American Revolution, and she wants to bring this to life. Bringing social studies to life is really helpful to make sure that students comprehend what they're reading and they connect to that information. Ms. Flynn is guided by the Common Core State Standards, and we've listed 3 here that are very relevant. They've been discussed in her school, they're discussed at team meetings and grade level meetings. And yet, she needs to become more focused. So she has developed a lesson objective that relates to this. She wants her students to use visualizing as a way to build strategies and understanding of pre-revolutionary Boston through the creation of a photographic storyboard of the events. She's using technology, she's linking it to content, and she's making it meaningful. She's giving students lots of ways in following the principles of universal design for learning. There'll be different ways to represent knowledge, different means of expression, and different ways to engage. This is a technology that she has available. She has cameras for taking stage photographs for the storyboard. She uses her interactive whiteboard almost all the time, and she'll be using Google Docs. Ms. Flynn thinks right away about assessment. So before everyone adjourns from our face-to-face PD session, we're thinking that we would have everyone look at this, and then while they're there, that they would start reading the case story that we have below. The story tells about what it would feel like if you were visiting Mrs. Flynn's classroom and what she's doing. So it's like you're opening the door, you're peeking in, and you're seeing how Mrs. Flynn sets up the lesson, what the students do before reading, what they're doing while they're reading. Let's scroll down a little more. How she's modeling, how she's guiding students, how she's giving them examples to work with, and then how she brings the class together after reading to bring closure to the lesson. So while we're there all together, we're going to pause and have people read this silently. But we want to discuss it. We want to engage in close reading ourselves. So back to the PD support materials, Caroline, and let's show what we would use in terms of supporting this activity. So we'll go to our PD support materials. And it's really wonderful that you're following along with Caroline so you can see her pathway of how she's accessing these different materials. And we're going to scroll down to the very last page, Caroline. This page is a scavenger hunt. And again, we'll have those involved in the PD face-to-face. We will have them work in small groups, maybe 3 or 4 together. They'll discuss these questions. They'll go back to the case story, pull out information, but then again use that to brainstorm more. So they can think about how the story, how the teaching aligned to the Common Core, how the teacher was using any of our Teach with Tech strategies. Where was the technology in this case? What was the teacher doing to support struggling students? How did the teacher personalize instruction? Where did you see evidence of differentiation? And how was the teacher translating UDL principles into action? And of course, here's that all-important question at the end. If you can't find an example, what would you have done? Always taking the case story as a way to think more deeply about instruction and how you could translate some of those ideas into practice and do even better than Ms. Flynn. So that would be how we might end it, but because we want to think about blended learning, we would then say, here's an assignment. If you go all the way up to the top, Caroline, of our lesson in action, thank you. And you could see on the top left, we have a section that's called At a Glance. This breaks down the instructional steps of the lesson, before reading, during reading, and after reading. So going back online after the face-to-face session, the assignment would be to take these teaching steps and work it into a lesson plan, the kind of lesson plan that would meet the needs of your students. Post them in a Google Doc so we could share them. We could use any of the social media tools that we have within the districts, and then we would have a way to keep the conversation going as a follow-up to the face-to-face. So there would be online work in PowerUp in preparation. We'd be digging into a set of related and support materials that support each other and enhance each other within PowerUp when we're face-to-face. And then we would extend the learning afterwards with an assignment that could keep us going. We would also think about how back in schools, in small groups, people could talk about once they implemented some of these lesson plans, what happened? How did they reflect on their lessons, just like Ms. Flynn did in her lesson? I'm going to pause now and ask if you have any questions or if you'd like to see something else on PowerUp. More than happy to answer them or to take you to that section. Tracy, back to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Judy. I think that Elise and Judy gave you a sense of the different types of resources and materials that we have on the PowerUp site, again with an emphasis on evidence-based practices that can be enhanced with technology. So we'd love to get some of your questions and ideas on how you might be able to use PowerUp, and also talk about ways that we might be able to support you more directly in your work, whether it's offering webinars or other types of information. Are there any questions out there? Any ideas or suggestions?
Any comments about?
This is Anna. So obviously there's a lot of good information here, and I'm sort of, I've been following along, but it's like I want to kind of explore myself. But what do you anticipate, or what have you known where people are finding the greatest impact or use on this website? Is it the videos? Is it actually, when you're walking us through sort of that example plan, like what, have you gotten any feedback from sort of the users?
That's a really great question, Anna. As Elise and Judy noted, we've been working with 15 different school sites, all of which are quite diverse and different in terms of both their geographical distribution, the different types of students that they have. They run from an urban school district in Philadelphia to a smaller district that's probably more suburban in Dallas to a much more rural site in Minnesota. So while yours is a great question, we found that depending upon where the particular district is in their evolution, they've found the classroom resources for the teachers to be very useful, and school leaders have found the information on technology implementation for leveraging technology tools school-wide to be really very helpful. But
in addition to that, we've heard that those that are planning PD are finding out those PD materials where we have what it could be the goals, what are the materials, what are the activities, plus those 3 handouts. Very useful because it's something that they could download and use right away.
Okay. No, yeah, thank you for that.
And I think you almost have to crosswalk what the needs of your respective audience might be. Are you working with teachers? And if you're working with teachers, Anna, then the PowerUp Your School resources and information is the place you'd want to go. If you're planning professional development activities, then obviously you'd want to go to PowerUp Your Professional Development. And then if you're working with school leaders, administrators, technology coordinators who are trying to get a better understanding of the needs of struggling students, you'd probably want to go to the PowerUp Your School. Mark?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Thank you.
Sorry.
This is Mark. As you were going through the PowerUp website, and thank you for doing that. I was thinking that from my role as state manager of technical assistance and support to the Ohio Department of Education, that's the level at which I work. So, and our teams work. So, I was trying to envision how I would go about both introducing this tool and how they might use it in rolling it out to districts. So, anyway, I need to think more about that, but I can see it comes at a really good time, as folks are beginning full implementation of the Common Core this fall.
Exactly.
And Mark, we'd be happy to, schedule a private time if you need it, where we could go back through the website and help you kind of look more closely at some of the pieces and decide what and how they could be used.
Yeah, and there are specific individuals at Ohio Department of Ed I think would be very interested in the site and all that, the potential of it. And so, I would start with them and maybe include you in on a call with them probably.
We'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Mark, just to underscore Judy's comments. We'd be very pleased to do it, and again, to work around your colleagues' schedule and what their needs are. Also, you touched on a really important point. One of the driving factors for us to add the Common Core to the website, which we didn't have initially, is for the very reason that there's so little information out there to help teachers and school leaders figure out what this means for struggling students. It seems to be one of the critical missing pieces in terms of knowledge that's out there. People really don't know where to turn, and so one of our goals was to really help them figure out what aligns with the state standards, whether they're using the Common Core or even just their own state standards. There's information that aligns to that.
Yeah, and we're especially focused on the support for EL students right now, and so this would fit in very well, I think.
Yes.
Great. Well, and as you know, a lot of the tools and strategies that are offered to meet the needs of ELL students are similar to students with special needs in terms of the need to scaffold, the need to differentiate instruction, because the students are at so many different levels in their acquisition of English and their ability to get through the curriculum.
Yeah, so this has a lot of potential for sure.
Great.
This is Marina. How, as you think of rolling this out, how have you worked with like higher ed? This seems to me something that higher ed would, as they train teachers and provide continuing education, it would be good.
You've said something that's really important because we have had very positive feedback from those in the field who are doing teacher prep. They say that our information is presented in such a way that some of those teachers that are entering the profession, that they could really understand it. It lays a wonderful foundation for them, and to be thinking about the practice and the technology at the same time, and then how to differentiate instruction. So we've had very positive response. In fact, a great supporter of PowerUp is Bridget Dalton at the University of Colorado. Tracy, maybe you want to talk a little bit more about Bridget and how she uses PowerUp.
Sure. Thanks, Judy. As Judy noted, Bridget Dalton, who is a teacher educator at the University of Colorado, Boulder and Denver, has been using PowerUp, the different instructional strategy guides, to really help new teachers understand how technology can enhance their instruction. And she's been working with them, taking an individual instructional strategy guide, a particular topic, context clues or visualization, and then working with them to develop lesson plans that detail how they can use a particular digital tool, a mobile device, an app, to support this particular instruction. Because as you well know, it's really never been about the technology. It's been about empowering new teachers or our teachers who have been working for a long time to really understand how to use the technology to engage the students, and also to differentiate instruction so that students are able to move at their own pace through a particular curriculum area.
So although we call the section of Power Up Your Professional Development, once you're in that section, you'll see how we define who are those people who do professional development very broadly in terms of those people with that title, curriculum supervisors, coaches, mentors, and those involved in teacher education. So we think very broadly about those people that are preparing teachers and helping them once they're in the profession. That was a really good question. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hi there, it's Sarah Race from the Midwest Comprehensive Center.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello. I was just wondering if this, you might have said this already at the beginning, but is this webinar recorded?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I think it would be great to, there was a competing meeting with some of the Regional Comprehensive Center staff, like a staff meeting in the Naperville office. And I think that we would like for them to be able to listen to this. And we'd also like to be able to share it with some state staff that we're working with that weren't able to attend.
That's great. And also, if you want a live webinar, we're happy to schedule one that would meet your needs.
That would be great. Thank you. And the other connection I wanted to make to the Common Core side of things is that 4 of the 7 states in our 2 regions are a part of the Implementing the Common Core Standards consortium that's part of CCSSO, and they are meeting this week, and there will be state teams present. And I would love to be able to share just a little bit of information about this resource with them. So if you have a one-sheeter,
Sarah, sure, and I can send it to you electronically.
We also have some beautiful bookmarks, laminated bookmarks with our URL. Would you like us to send you some?
Well, if they can be shipped, why don't I follow up with you by email about this, because it would be good to have some of those kinds of resources to disseminate. So why don't I follow up with you by email?
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can overnight the bookmarks to you. We've got brochures, but I can also send you the one-pager that you can print out as you see fit.
Great. Thank you.
That's great, Sarah. Thanks. Any other points?
And if anyone else would like materials, we can share them with you as well.
Well, again, we look forward to hearing from you. Why don't we go back to the PowerPoint just to make sure that we've covered everything. But really the key here is for us to underscore that we would be more than happy to work with you individually to provide a particular webinar with a focus that specifically meets the needs of your stakeholders and those people on your team. So this is part of our outreach effort to really make sure that we not only get the word out, but that we empower people in the field. As you can see on this last slide, we've got a series of webinars that are up and coming that is part of the EdTech Month hosted by Learning Revolution. You can check out our YouTube page where we've got other archived webinars. And of course, you can contact us at powerup@air.org, or you can contact me directly at AIR, Gray, Gray, @air.org. So thanks so much for your time, and we really do look forward to hearing from you, particularly if you get the opportunity to present PowerUp. We're always open for suggestions and comments on ways that we can ensure that the tool meets your needs and those of your stakeholders. So I want to thank you on behalf of Judy and Elise and myself. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.